This is the Outlap F1 podcast featuring America's own Cody, Andy, and Deanna. Your one-stop shop for Formula One news, insights, race previews, and reviews. Join us on the Outlap. Man, after the week I've had, boy, does it feel good to be back here. Welcome on in. You have found the Outlap F1 podcast. This will be season 7, episode number 14. It's our 2025 Imola or the Emilia-Romagna, big long name that I'm not going to try to pronounce because it's all in Italian, GP, that one, review show. You have got Andy, and I am along with Cody tonight. We will talk about why there was no preview episode in a little bit, but Cody, it is good to see you. I'm glad that tonight finds you well. But how's it going?
It is going well. I actually had the entire weekend to myself, and I took it in spades. I sat around and played video games for way longer than I probably should have, and didn't get any chores done around the house. But you know what? It was fun.
Well, good for you. I had a different type of week and different type of weekend, but we'll get into a little bit of that in just a little bit. But if you found our show, welcome along. You can find us as always on Blue Sky, on X, Instagram, Discord, Reddit, and of course here on YouTube at Outlap F1 Podcast is the handle for all of that. If you enjoy what you're watching and you like what you're seeing and you like what you're hearing, you can do us a solid, click the like or subscribe button if you're on YouTube, or you can you can leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcasting app, particularly Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You can email the show, outlapf1@gmail.com. We'll always get you your comments to us. Thank you so much to our continued supporters who continue to support the show. Thank you so much to Dean Warwick, Yuri Dolchester, Paul Weaver, Quentin Warden, Kevin Kelly, Regan Stanzik, Timothy Brown, and of course, Jonathan Scott. If you'd like to become a member of that, hashtag OutlapF1Nation and get a shout out on the beginning of every episode. We do include our anchor page. It isn't asking for a monetary donation. Do you have to do it? No, of course not. But if you'd like to, what it'll do is it'll go back into the show and try to keep our equipment up and current, keep us on this lovely recording platform, and all of that other good stuff. All right. So before we hop into Formula One and everything else, a couple things. One, obviously, there was no preview and there was no posts about no preview or anything like that. Unfortunately, I had a bit of a health scare over the course of this past week. It was also caused a little bit with COVID and maybe modified and exacerbated by COVID. But thank you to the staff, the nurses, the doctors at Advocate Christ Medical Center in my hometown of Oak Lawn. It is literally right down the road, and I'm very grateful that it was a short little ride to get me there. They helped me get me through this. It's been a heck of a week. And oh, by the way, and then I had COVID on top of it. So the idea of trying to do a recording, my voice was literally in shambles, is being nice. And not to mention what else was going on. There was a lot of just internal plumbing issues that were being addressed. The good news is I'm kind of on the back end of all of that. COVID has subsided. And the other issues, the treatment that they've given me so far is holding. So it looks like hopefully we're going to be on the mend and on the way back. So I may not be with the same amount of blood, curdling screaming tonight, but it is nice to be doing something that at least is familiar. Thank you so much to all the nurses who took care of me over the night. Nurse Becca, whose catchphrase NCIS crime scene is going to live with me in a special place in my brain for the rest of my life. Thank you so much, for the care and the humor and just you don't have to be, those people don't make enough money. Well, it is basically what I can tell you. Anybody, if you know a nurse or knows anybody in nursing, what those people have to deal with on a daily basis. I was one guy. They're dealing with 7 of people like me, all with different types of stuff, all going on at the same time. The fact that there are as many people who choose to do that as they are is tremendously commendable. My sister does a offshoot of nursing for a living, and I commend her, and I have a ton of new respect for what she did on a daily basis when she was at the hospital. So just thank you so much to everybody there, Nurse Becca, Nurse Mia, Nurse Pam, the doctors. I can't remember all the names. I tried to get everybody's name as they were leaving the room, so I would try to keep a mental list. But there was just so many, and everybody was super respectful and super nice. So the good news is I'm here. I'm okay. And we're going to be able to hopefully continue to cover this, what is now turning into an amazing F1 season. All right. Cody, any thoughts on any of that?
Just glad that you're doing better, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. Likewise. Very much so. All right. So now back to the normal scheduled programming. So we will start the F1 stuff with our headlines of the day because we had a race to talk about, dang it. And it actually turned out to be for an Imola GP, turned out to be a pretty damn fun one, if I'm honestly. So, Cody, what's your headline of the day? Take it away, sir.
It is stop teasing me, Max. After the results of the last 3 race weekends, I had started to become okay with the fact that the Max dynasty was probably over and that it would be really cool to see Oscar Orlando win the Drivers' Championship. And then Max goes and wins this race, and suddenly he's back in the hunt. And it's like, I can't keep swinging back and forth on this. You either have to break my heart or not.
Or he's not breaking your heart yet.
Yeah, I was gonna wait till like the last race.
Well, I mean, he got himself back into the championship fight, all right, and that's because my headline of the day is there was a video game on the old NES that had like 12 iterations. It was called Mega Man. My headline is Mega Max because it was an absolute mega move at turn one, and it's a move that you just gotta tip your cap to. And not to mention a very aptly timed virtual safety car, where I basically said, well, that's over and done with. Gave Max Verstappen probably his easiest victory since last season. That even notwithstanding, even after the second safety car, which we'll talk about when we get into the race, he was still able to pull away from both McLarens. So he obviously had the race pace, and good on you, Red Bull, for finding the race pace this weekend. So yeah, it looks like it's, at least for the moment, definitely championship back on. All right. So we will start, as we are always apt to do, with our qualifying recap. All right. So not setting a lap time in Q1 after suffering a horrific looking wreck where the car actually flipped over was Yuki Tsunoda. So he had Yuki's wild ride for sure. P19 was Oliver Behrman. P18 was Esteban Ocon. P17 was Nico Hulkenberg, and P16 was Liam Lawson. Advancing through to Q2, but going no farther, P15, the now newly reminted Franco Colapinto in the Alpine. P14 was Gabriele Bortoleto. P13, hometown hero Kimi Antonelli, not able to get out of Q2. That was a shocker. P12 and P11, even more shocking. The two Ferraris, Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc. What happened there? Advancing through to Q3, the other Alpine of Pierre Gasly. P9, Isaac Hadjar and the Racing Bulls. P8, I loved your text. They ate their Wheaties this morning. Aston Martin, Lance Stroll, and then Fernando Alonso's all the way up in P5. Holy crap. P8 or P7 was Alex Albon in the Williams. P6 was Carlos Sainz in the Williams. So Williams and Aston Martin duking it out in qualifying. Look at that. P5 was Fernando Alonso. P4, only able to get this high, was Lando Norris in the McLaren. P3 was George Russell. P2, thought he did it again. Thought he did the Max Factor thing. He almost pulled it off, but not quite. Only P2 for Max Verstappen because P1, with an absolute mega last turn that probably saw Oscar Piastri as emotional as we're learning new emotional limits for Oscar Piastri on the radio. But Oscar Piastri in the other McLaren with a 1:14.670. All right. Cody, big thoughts here in the qualifying. Lots of people not where you'd expect them to be.
Yeah, there's actually quite a bit that went on in this qualifying. I think the first one is the Yuki Tsunoda crash. I actually stepped away from the TV during, of course, the exact minute that that happened. So I come back and I'm like, why is there a red flag? And I had to like rewind it on F1 TV a little bit. And I was like, holy crap, no wonder. Um, it was a scary looking crash with how he flipped around. It's funny how they showed it because, when I rewound it all the way back, you see his car just sitting there in the gravel, and you're like, oh, well, yeah, it looks like it was a pretty nasty crash because of the state of the car, but you don't really get a sense of it until they finally show you the replay and you see how his car like flips all around and kind of up into the fence. And yeah, it was really nasty. And it really goes to show you just uh, how safe and durable these cars are, because after that, he got out right away, flipped out his little, like, I don't even know what you call that little head harness thing, but he flips that out. He gets out of the car.
The Hans
Yeah,
device.
there you go. He didn't even really seem that shaken. He's probably pissed off from what happened, but yeah, it seemed to be really not any worse for wear after that crazy ride. So it's a good thing these cars are as safe as they are.
Yeah, the Halo proves its worth yet again. There's absolutely no reason why that should ever go away, because every time you see a crash like that where the driver's head could have easily been exposed, and it would have been, and just he would have been thrown at the barrier. The Halo has done its job, and it's continually done its job, and it saved Roman Grosjean for sure, and it probably saved Yuki Tsunoda from God only knows what. Um, so yeah, I mean, but again, you're right. I mean, when I first saw it, I'm like, oh well, Yuki had a crash. I had just assumed it was like a tank slapper, or something like that. And then you watch the replay and it's like, oh my God, he not only, he had the tank slapper, but then the tank slapper kicked over and he, does a 360 and lucky to end back up on the right side. So he could get out. And it was, the marshals were right there and everybody did their jobs uh, perfectly in order to get him out. And he's able to walk away from it. The car was not in a very good state after that, and that was kind of the end of that chassis. But yeah, just kind of a scary moment. That leads to the Oliver Behrman issue. Oliver Behrman, who probably should have gotten out of Q1 um, by all rights, except for the fact that there was probably a manual flag somewhere that had called for the red flag, whether it was one marshal post or somewhere. But according to all of the telemetry and the onboards that we could see, it didn't look like they flashed the red flag until after he had crossed the line. The FIA kind of said, well, no, that's not exactly what happened. Red flag was issued at this timestamp. Unfortunately, he hadn't made the line, so therefore his lap didn't count. They did now, I actually applaud them, because we've seen sometimes the FIA do things where they're like, oh, well, we'll undo the track limit thing and we'll reinstate the position. But that means that the driver who got reinstated couldn't continue in qualifying. But what they did here was they actually sat back and reviewed the thing for about good 10, 12 minutes. Now, it was kind of annoying, in the middle of a quali session to have a review, but I'm glad that they looked at it and they finally came to a conclusion. Meanwhile, I loved the showmanship of Kick Sauber sending Gabriel Bortoletto out into the pit lane at the end of the pit lane. Like, anytime you want to let me go, I'm more than willing to participate in Q2 because I haven't been told not to. But Cody, what was your take on the whole Behrman thing?
I am happy that they reviewed it. Now, I think they were kind of their, what's the right way to say it? They saved some face from the fact that there was a red flag because it gave them some time to review it thoroughly. When this happened before, I think it was Alex Albon that got screwed out of this
Yep.
by a penalty coming after we'd already moved into the next session. It didn't happen here, where they actually had an adequate amount of time to review it during the red flag period, and they showed so many different camera angles. I was actually pretty impressed by it, where they're like, oh, okay, like this is where he's at when the lights start flashing, and this is where he's at when it changes to red, or or the red flag message comes up on the screen. But yeah, like you said, it ended up, even though he was past the line when those aids came into play. Apparently, the red flag had been officially issued before he made the line by a few seconds, I think. And so, unfortunately for him, that means his lap does not count, and he is all the way at the back.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you look at it in real time, and you're like, you say Haas has grounds here, and you're surprised that they didn't reconsider it. But if again, it's the timestamp in race control as to when they say red flag, and if that is consistent and it's consistent across the board, I don't think there's really a whole lot that you can do about it. I mean, he did the right thing. He finished the lap, and then he slowed way down once he saw that the red flag came out. It's just kind of sucks because his time would have been more than enough, and they probably would have shown a lot better in the overall race because of it. But next little bit, hometown heroes having some problems, at least on Saturday. Kimi Antonelli and both Ferraris not making Q3. That was not in the script. Both Hamilton and Leclerc definitely struggling, and Kimi Antonelli, who had a decent run of the practices, that we figured that they would all slot in where they did. They just didn't.
Yeah, it was really too bad for him because we see the discrepancy between Antonelli and George Russell between where they qualified, and it's same car, so we know it can get up there. It is really too bad for Kenny that he wasn't able to put it all together for what essentially is his home race. I guess he goes to school. The announcers were saying that he goes to school not too far away from where this track is at, over in, I think they said
They did a
Bologna.
field trip. They
Yeah,
literally did a class field trip to the racetrack on
that was
Friday. It was
that was
hilarious.
awesome, and that also just illustrates how young he is. That his classmates and his teachers can come do a field trip to
Right.
support him. That part is crazy to me. But as far as uh, the Ferraris go, don't really know what happened there, and the fact that they got kicked out of uh, Q3 by, what do we got here? We got Isaac Hadjar, Pierre Gasly, uh, both Aston Martins. Like it was a bit of a wild one. Like you'd figure that the Ferraris should be able to at least clear a few of those. At least get one of them into Q3. But no, both Lewis and Charles eliminated right at the end.
Yeah, with the Aston Martins doing something, because we didn't get a chance to do a preview, we didn't have a chance to talk about it. Pirelli introduced the C6 soft tire, and both Aston Martins instead elected to use the medium compound in Q2, which was the C5, which was last year's soft tire, and that worked out better for them, basically because the Aston Martin is really hard on its tires. That's one of the problems it has. It's one of its endemic problems. So it's got a lot of what I would call stupid downforce. And so they just did a tire offset for stupid downforce. And look what happened. Blam, here's Q3. But so great strategy call by them. They were committed to doing that as early as the first practice because they didn't run any of their sets in any of the practices. So they ran exclusively on the C6 tires all the way through all the FP sessions up until qualifying. So that caught a lot of people out. It definitely caught the Ferraris out. Caught Kimi Antonelli out as well.
Yeah, we're going to see the Aston Martins doing Monaco qualifying on the hards probably.
Well, yeah, we got a whole lot to talk about when we get to Monaco too. But up front, Lando Norris unfortunately not able to put together another great Q3 lap, so he was only able to get up to fourth. George Russell, I thought, rallying for the Mercedes cause, sticking his nose in, and then up front, hardly anything in between them. Max Verstappen trying to do the Max thing. I thought this was done after Sector 1 because Max goes through and he purples Sector 1, and he purpled it by like 4/10. And I said, I don't care how good the McLaren is in Sector 2 and Sector 3, and I know that that's where that car was eating. There's no way he's going to pull that back. And Piastri didn't have a great Sector 1. He had a good Sector 1, more than a great Sector 1. Like I said, he's 4/10 down. But somehow, some way, with traffic and everything else, pissed off Piastri is a thing. I'm going to keep talking about this. Wait till next week when we talk about it some more. I have a funny feeling. But able to just pip Max there, despite Max rallying the setup on that car again. It's another indication of on Friday, the Red Bull turns up and it's terrible. And I don't know what they do to that car, but they dialed it in. Max got happy. When Max gets happy, he gets fast. I seriously thought he had it. I'm shocked that I'm not talking about another Max pole here.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. It shows the green on the timing of down by 4 tenths, and I was like, "Holy shit, he's got this one in the bag." And then it shows after the second sector, oh no, now he's over by like a few hundredths of a second. I'm like, "What the hell happened in that sector?" But no, it's just they're both competing at their very best right now, and it's really awesome to see.
Well, and you can tell the differences in what parts of the track each car excels in. You know, Max, the straight line, that's where the Red Bull is just eating and making its lap time, and then the McLaren is doing it in the medium and the slower corners, and it's amazing that these two totally distinctive car designs are coalescing to come up with almost the exact same lap time.
Yeah,
Very very interesting.
you were telling me before that you think they just take all the downforce off of Max's car, and he probably just sits there and goes, "Yeah, just take it all off. I'll figure it out. Just make make it go as fast as it'll go."
They ran the exact same spec of wing that they ran in Japan. So it's the exact same thing that they did. And that was where you could clearly see the difference between Yuki's setup and Max's setup, where, it just kept getting lower and lower and lower, that rear spoiler. And, damn, man. But yeah, so a very fun qualifying session. But then now it's time to turn over and we can talk about the race that actually turned out to be a lot more entertaining than I think we all thought going into it, because it is generally so hard to overtake here. And if this is the last Imola GP for a while, because its spot on the calendar has not been confirmed for the future, it went out with a pretty good bang, I thought, to be honest with you. So we'll turn over to Sunday, and we'll start with the back markers, which saw Esteban Ocon and hometown hero Kimi Antonelli both unfortunately succumb to engine issues. Two engine issues in one race. Wow. This is Formula One now. Kind of a thing that we hadn't had for a long time. So a bit of a unreliability there. P18 was Gabriel Bortoleto. P17 was Ali Behrman. P16 was Franco Calapinto. P15 was Lance Stroll, unable to convert the good qualifying into points for Aston Martin. P14 was Liam Lawson, and P13 was Pierre Gasly, who, despite having a really good qualifying form, had himself a moment early and went into the gravel, and that was basically the end of his contention. But Cody, other big thoughts here in the back markers?
That it was a little strange to see some like reliability issues actually cause retirements. As you said, we don't see a lot of that going on right now. I do think we're going to start seeing a lot more of it beginning next year because we're going to have all new engines, so they're going to have to work out all those kinks. But it was actually kind of fun. I mean, normally you think it kind of stinks that your good race can be ruined by the car underneath you just giving up the ghost. But it did really throw a wrench into a lot of teams' strategies this race because let's see here. I think it was the Esteban Ocon one caused a virtual safety car. He was pretty close to a spot where they could just roll his car off the track, so it didn't need to be a full safety car, but there were still plenty of drivers who benefited from that VSC. And then the Kimi Antonelli retirement came much later in the race, and that one he was much further up the hill. He was not close enough to be rolled off, so they actually needed to get the tractor out there to haul him off. So that one was a full safety car, and we'll talk about how these safety cars affected the race as we get toward the front runners. But it did give me a little bit of a heart skip, being like, "No, Max is out front. He was way out front. Just let him stay there." But uh, it did at least make things more interesting. It was already a pretty interesting race, and that just threw even more into it.
One of them got him the big gap, and one of them took the gap away. But we will get there in just a little bit. But moving now into the midfield, P12 saw Nico Hulkenberg and the Kick Sauber, who had some flirtations with the points, but was unable to get there. P11. This is the first time I think we've seen Fernando Alonso lose it a bit this year. He's
Oh
been very
man, yeah.
patient,
I'm the
but he
most
thought,
unlucky driver in the world, and there was definitely an F
uh,
bomb in there too.
yeah. I told you it was just going to be a matter of time before the bomb goes off, and here we go. Fernando Alonso, hard luck life, man. Just unable not to get into the points. He finishes the unenviable P11. P10 getting into the points, despite starting from the pit lane, was Yuki Tsunoda. P9 was Isaac Hadjar. P8 was Carlos Sainz. P7 was George Russell, the good qualifying form not necessarily apparent for the Mercedes team here. P6 was Charles Leclerc. P5, other than I think Max Verstappen, my other star of the show, I thought was Alex Albon. Just some amazing. The Alex Albon's gotten his horns out and has learned how to race. And
Mhm.
if he's no longer just a guy who's going to like give way anymore, because the Williams has got its fangs out and they're competing, man. So that was really fun to watch. P4, for a guy who's had a bit of a rough start in his new job and his new place, Lewis meet the Tifosi. The Tifosi meet Lewis. I don't think I've ever seen a Ferrari crowd more happy about a P4 finish in a long time. But Lewis Hamilton from P13 on the grid all the way up to P4 with some great overtake moves, especially late in the race. All right, Cody, big thoughts here in the midfield.
I thought it was a great comeback for both Ferrari drivers from where they qualified, making it up into the top half of the points. Was really great. Charles Leclerc got a little hung out to dry at the end because he wasn't able to pit to get on. Or I think he had. I don't remember exactly who pitted when, but he definitely had some older tires on at the end there, so he was pretty much just trying to hold on. But sixth place, considering where he started, not bad at all. And Lewis Hamilton, had he had maybe like 5 more laps to try to close that gap on Oscar Piastri, who also was hanging on old tires, he might have been able to make the podium. Uh, so again, great performance from them to come back from the poor qualifying and get something out of the race. Alex Albon, my heart was broken a little bit. I thought he had a chance at a podium. He was like right there in third place at just the right time at one point, and I was like, "Holy crap, he's gonna do it!" It's gonna be like a legit on pace Williams podium, first one for Alex Albon, and it's gonna be awesome. And yeah, it just didn't quite go his way. He did kind of go off the track at one point, trying to take a spot from Charles Leclerc, who ended up having to give that spot back to him to presumably avoid a penalty. Ended up losing the position to Lewis Hamilton in that melee as well. But all three of them really great day for those drivers to finish as far up in the points as they did.
Yeah, definitely. And some really good entertainment and moves and counter moves in places in Imola that you don't necessarily expect to see overtaking. So, the reputation of this track is, you only got one corner to overtake. Not so when these guys decide to get their fangs out and start moving and shaking and, you know, bipping and baking around there. So, I mean, it was very entertaining to watch. I mean, I was, as a neutral in this, it was like, oh, wow. And especially the move where Lewis basically, I think, passes two of them, past Albon and Leclerc at one point, because Leclerc was hanging it out on some really old tires and Lewis was on very, very fresh tires. And you're right. I mean, maybe 4 or 5 more laps, Lewis might be very well on the podium. And that would have been, the Tifosi there would have gone insane. So, you do see, and I've been saying this, Ferrari race pace is a thing. Now, I don't know. I cannot explain what the hell they did in qualifying or what setup they put on the car that just completely went bass backwards for them. But their race pace got them this result for sure. All right. So moving into the podium, it's a podium that we're familiar with, but not necessarily in the familiar order. P3, despite starting on pole, Oscar Piastri and the McLaren only able to come home P3. We'll talk about how he got there. P2, the beneficiary of the second safety car, although getting screwed over by the virtual safety car earlier in the race, was Lando Norris. So one good, one not so good. So that's where he ended up. P2, 6.109 seconds adrift of the guy who was in control after turn one, after the mega move that he pulled on Oscar Piastri. We'll talk about it. We're going to break it down in a minute. Max Verstappen taking win number 65 in his career. I just tip my cap. Sometimes he's just better. They were just better today. All right. So we'll start with the flashpoint, the turn one, the whole start. Yeah, it's one of those, if you're a Max Verstappen fan, it is a chef's kiss moment. Putting that car, it's very reminiscent of the move he pulled on Lando at Coda last year, where I thought the McLaren or Oscar got a decent start off the line, and he's basically looked like he had the two lanes basically covered. He was kind of in the middle. And then for whatever reason, he saw George Russell coming up behind him or on his left side and decided to move over, not thinking that there was enough room for Max Verstappen to squeeze into the Tamburello chicane there. But Max Verstappen's going to go. If you give him a spot, he's going to try it. And, what the hell? I thought he was going to end up in the gravel. When I saw it on the onboard, I'm like, he's going to, oh my God, he made it stick. And, once he made it stick, he's got the inside line on the next turn because of the way the chicane is positioned. And he just zooms around Oscar Piastri. One of the first times I think we saw Oscar really blink. And Max took advantage, but it required a mega move, but Max pulled it off. So, Cody, what'd you see?
It was awesome to me, and my emotions did a big flip flop in the span of a couple of seconds because they get off the line. Oscar has a good start. Max kind of George Russell has a great start. So I'm sitting there going, "Oh, son of a gun! Like this was a chance." And if from what we've seen, if Oscar takes off down the road in first place, probably going to win. And then they go into that turn, and when Max, just slides by right on the edge there, I literally kind of did one of these in my seat. It was like, holy crap. The F1 TV announcers absolutely loved it. I think they needed a little bit of a cold shower after that one. They
The
were
Sky
singing his
Guys did
praises.
too.
Yeah.
Anthony Davidson needed something too after that, let me tell you.
So that really cracked me up how they were singing the praises like that. But it was really an awesome move. And yeah, Oscar did kind of leave the door open for it to happen because he was trying to cover off George. And I mean, perhaps rightfully so. I mean, George did have the great start, and you don't know, how that's going to compromise you. But I would say he probably would have been better off putting the block on Max because,
Uh-huh.
yeah, George gets by into the lead, but Mercedes hasn't been strong enough yet to really take the race win. So unless some magic happens with it out in clean air, you figure Oscar's probably going to take that back as long as he's in front of Max. But yeah, as you said, maybe a little bit of a blink from Oscar, not really thinking that Max was going to be as much of a threat in that moment as he was. And yeah, Max gets out in front and ends up taking off down the road, which was another big surprise to me because I was worried we were going to see something in like what we saw in Miami, where yeah, Max gets out in front, but it doesn't last. He's got to fight for it, and it ends up becoming inevitable that he gets passed. But no, Max actually stayed pretty well in control of the pace throughout the entire race, and he did get some big benefits here. If you want to talk about how Max benefited and the McLarens really got screwed by the virtual safety car, go for it.
Yeah, Oscar didn't do himself any favors either.
Right.
Number one, the start, and we were texting back and forth, and my point was, look, if George Russell can pull that move off, great on him, fair play. He can go off into the distance. Oscar Piastri is going to have enough race pace to catch and pass him. As was evidenced by what Lando was able to do. Lando was able to catch and pass George. It took him a while, had to figure it out, but was able to get the move done. And so you could definitely tell. Also, George Russell, as of right now, is 47 points adrift in the Drivers' Championship. You got to know who you're racing. Oscar, the people who you have to mark is number one, your teammate, number two, Max. That's it right now. Until somebody else gets into that arena, that's it. So why, even if you end up P3 and Max is P5, that's still good for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if he just kind of figured, oh, well, we're just going to pull in Miami and I'll get him back later. And no, you gotta understand that's a freaking, it's a cobra snake, man. He's going to wrap himself around that race win and not give it up. And you should know that. So it was kind of baffling to me. Like, you had gotten the start. All you had to do was move over and cover Max off, and he's got nowhere to go. But he didn't do it. And for whatever reason, he let Max go. And whether he was trying to think championship or think big picture, I don't know. But it is not in the normal Oscar Piastri mode that we've seen. Now, the rest of the race is the normal Oscar Piastri mode because what ends up happening is he's now in the dirty air. His tires are going off. He radios into his pit and says, I don't think I'm going to make the plan A strategy, which was probably to go 25 or so laps on a set of C5 tires. So they box him, put him in a decent window, put him in some kind of clean air, but he's got a lot of people who aren't necessarily on that same strategy who he's got to do some overtakes. So he's got to do some overtaking. And like I said before, pissed off Piastri is a thing because he started cutting and shuffling through the field, making moves that I don't know a whole lot of other people who were going to make those moves, including his teammate right there. But he gets to almost undoing the damage of the early pit stop, and then the virtual safety car hits, and Max is literally 19 seconds in front at the end of that because Max gets a free and totally free pit stop. Reminded me of what happened to Lando Norris in Miami last year. It was kind of almost one of those type situations where it's like, well, shit, this is, I'm like, well, this is over. We're gonna watch a pace battle for a while, and maybe Lando or Oscar can get it down. Like I think when it came back and they went racing again, it was like 19 point something seconds. And I'm like, well, okay, if Lando gets it down to like 13, okay, at least we know we still got decent race pace, but he's not going to catch him.
It didn't help for Lando, too, that he pitted like the lap before the virtual.
The lap before. Lando had done the appropriate strategy, which was hold out because the tires were graining, but then they came back. So, yeah, Lando was also complaining about his tires, but this is one of the things we don't necessarily know about Oscar. How good is he on the tire management side? He hasn't really had to do that a whole lot this season. I think this was a time where he blinked on the strategy. The team trusted the feedback, called him in because he was telling them, I can't make this strategy work. So, if you're McLaren, what do you do? Do you just have him hang out on a thing that he's not happy with? Losing not a big chunks of time, but it was like 3 or 4 seconds to Max at the time. He wasn't gaining on him. He wasn't able, and because of the timing of the virtual safety car, we never got to see the end of the tire stint where the McLaren could do its work and maybe try to claw the disadvantage back a little bit. So Max was able to control the tires and control the temperature. He could push when he wanted. He had kind of carte blanche until the second safety car, where I literally said, oh, race director, you've elected drama.
I did the same thing. I was like, oh, so the other one was a VSC. You got to make this one a safety car because it was like at the end, right? And then I realized, okay.
I thought the same thing. I saw the double yellow flags come up, and I went, oh, you've got to be kidding. And then he goes full safety car, and I'm like, you did a good job of explaining why one was a virtual and one was a full one. When I was just looking at it, I was like, well, why is the one a virtual and why is the other? It didn't make any sense to me. I'm like, they should both be the same. I'm like, why is that not another VSC? But I think to your point, where the car was stopped and what they had to do to remove it turned out to be the determining factor. So I do feel the full safety car was appropriate, especially on the Antonelli one, because it took them like 7 laps to do it, as it turned out. So it was just not in a good spot. But, that now you've got Max and P1 on new tires. Lando has now made a second stop, so he's on new tires, but now he's behind Oscar, who's now on these used set of hards. And now we're going to have a 10 lap or something shootout. Lando is in the best position to challenge Max at this point. And now here comes where
now Max pitted for new tires as well, too, I think, right?
Correct. Under this full safety car. So Max is on brand new hard tires with 1 lap on them. Lando's on a set of hard tires with, I think, 1 additional lap on them because the McLaren scrubbed them in practice. So they were on equal tires. And Oscar's on the 16 lap old hards that he had gotten on his first stop. So the situation now becomes the classic, well, what do you do, McLaren? Do you issue a team order? Do you let them race? The election was to let them race, which they did cleanly. It took Lando 2 or 3 laps, but he does get around his teammate, basically, I think, because of the tire offset, but didn't have anything for Max after that. So whether or not I think they would have had anything for Max, even if the positions were reversed, I don't think so. Just because of the way Max has had the fresh tire life and the Red Bull race pace on those newer tires was just as good as the McLaren's today.
Yeah, it would have been rough to do the position swap there too, because everyone's grouped so close together at that point. If you want Lando to have a shot at Max, you'd have to do that position swap pretty quick. Everyone else is there right behind you, and Oscar's on the old tires, so you're pretty much like leaving him for the wolves at that point. If I think Charles Leclerc was up there with old tires too, but uh, Alex Albon was all over him. Lewis Hamilton was all over the both of them. So if they got by Leclerc and Oscar's already right there because he had to let Lando by, I think that would have potentially let Oscar fall even further back. So I think it was like I think it was right to let them race. Um, I think they kind of probably knew what the result was going to be anyway, so long as they let them race cleanly, and they did. They did a good job with that. Oscar didn't just let Lando by; he fought him for it, but he didn't fight him too hard. So, I think it ended up being exactly what it was going to be, no matter whether they did a
Yeah.
swap or.
Well, and the thing is, that's your championship leader. It's your championship leader and the guy who's won, 3 races in a row.
Yeah,
What are you telling him if you're going to team order that right there? I mean,
when
you
his
are
closest competitor is
destroying
that teammate.
right. You are destroying any bit of the culture you're claiming to have. When we get to our awards, my favorite analyst was back on Sky this weekend, and you'll all know who I'm talking about. And he did a thing, and it was one of those. I don't have necessarily the same fire to get all red faced right now, but I was pretty damn close. Um, we'll get there, but ay. Like that, it was never. This was never. The McLarens did not have the race pace necessary, I think, to get at Max, because even after the virtual safety car, when the gap was like the 19 seconds, Lando is in effectively clean air. He's maybe in and was on the better tire strategy. He wasn't making a whole lot of inroads. It only got to maybe like 18.5 or something before the safety car happened. So even if Lando is there, there's no way that I just don't. I didn't see it potentially even happening. Like, it was nice that the gap came down, and I'm like, well, okay, at least we have a shot. But I wasn't very confident in that result flipping unless Max had a problem. All right. Any other thoughts on the podium or the Max victory or anything else before we kind of tie a bow on it?
Uh, that I didn't really quite catch the joke behind it, but apparently all the Tifosi were singing some kind of song for Max Verstappen when he was on the podium and they were doing his national anthem.
Oh, I missed it too.
Yeah, you have to go back.
Whatever it was.
I heard it on the broadcast and was like, are they like making fun of him? Are they like cheering him? And then I kind of read about it later and they were like singing some kind of like do Max Verstappen song or something. And
Oh,
so it was
well,
funny. You could definitely hear it on the broadcast until they decided to mute
there's
it.
a club song, that I think it's Rammstein or something, that has a like 40-minute techno song that features Max Verstappen highlights in it,
Really?
and it's do Max Verstappen da da.
That's what it was then.
Yeah, so it might be that. So it may be reference to the Rammstein song,
There, I learned
or
something new today.
yeah. So, no, Max is very popular in a lot of places. So, but anyway, we will leave a very entertaining Imola GP here. I did enjoy the watch, even though I didn't necessarily get the team result I wanted. I mean, I can't be that pissed off with P2 and P3. I gotta remember that
Still a double
perspective.
podium.
Yeah, it's like, and then you watch all the post race stuff, and McLaren got vanquished. I'm like, no, vanquished would have been if they were where Hulkenberg was. That's vanquished. That would have been bad. If Max is leading the drivers, that's vanquished. That would have been a problem. This was not vanquished. Max was just better today, and I tip my cap to him. So anyway, we're going to leave this here. We're going to come back. We'll re-rack. We'll do our normal second half of the show's things, where we're going to recap where all the drivers and the teams stand after this round of the championship. We'll then open it up to your takes on the weekend in the fan email segment. We'll hand out some awards. We didn't get a chance to do predictions, so we won't talk about that. But we'll do a little preview of Monaco, and I'll talk a little bit about some Indy 500 qualifying. Something happened at the Indy 500 qualifying today that hasn't happened in 41 years. And you'll recognize the name if you're well read in the racing world. So come on back and we'll get into it.
You are listening to the Outlap F1 podcast, and we'll be right back after this quick pit stop. Grab your flu powder, broomstick, or apparate to your favorite audio streaming service to join the discussion on Hogwarts, a podcast, where Dan and his friends have in-depth chapter-by-chapter breakdowns of each Harry Potter novel. Join the group as they dive into the magical world and discuss plot points, analyze character development, and occasionally go off the rails. Whether you're a muggle who's new to the series or a pure-blood wizard who won't need a remember-all, Hogwarts, a podcast, brings everyone to the Great Hall for a magical discussion. Hogwarts, a podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, welcome back on in. This is Season 7, Episode number 14 of the Outlap F1 podcast. It's our 2025 Imola GP review show. You've got Andy, and I'm along with Cody tonight. And we just finished talking about a very entertaining Imola GP. And like I said before, if this is the last one, it went out with pretty much a bang. So well on you, Imola. Good show all weekend long. So now it is time to kind of recap where all the standings are after this round of the 2025 F1 Championship. So, Cody, if you do the drivers, as always, I will handle the teams.
All right. In first place in the driver standings after the Emilia-Romagna d'Italia, la-di-da-di-da-di-da, Oscar Piastri still in first place for McLaren at 146 points now. His teammate Lando Norris in second place with 133 points. Max Verstappen making a little bit of a gain on the McLarens after this race with his win. He's in third for Red Bull at 124 points. George Russell, first time this season he has finished a session outside of the top 5. Seventh still not awful, though. He gets a few points. He's in fourth place for Mercedes at 99 points. Charles Leclerc, the first of the two Ferraris, in fifth place with 61 points, and Lewis Hamilton right behind him in sixth place with 53 points. Kimi Antonelli not having the best of luck this weekend. He scores no points at this race, but he is in seventh place in the standings, and the other Mercedes at 48 points. Alex Albon did have a great showing here, finishing fifth place, so that puts him, I believe he's still in eighth place. In fact, he's probably, looking at the points here, probably going to be hanging around eighth place for a long time. But for Williams, and he is sitting at 40 points, and then it is a points tie for 9th and 10th place. Esteban Ocon gets 9th place on tiebreaker for Haas at 14 points, as I said. And in 10th place, Lance Stroll still holding on to that spot for Aston Martin, also on 14.
Yeah, Carlos Sainz not that far behind now, but still Lance Stroll flying the banner for Aston Martin. It's still crazy to think about it, but there you go. All right, so in the constructors, McLaren Mercedes, while they did not get the race win, they had a really good points day. They extend their lead in the Constructors' Championship. They are up now to 279 points over second place Mercedes, who check in with 147 points. Third place is Red Bull Racing Honda. They check in with 131 points. P4 is now solidly Ferrari, looking up now at the Red Bull team, but they are up to 114 points based on their good result today. P5 also now with a gap to their P6 rival, Williams Mercedes. They check in now with 51 points. Great result for them. P6 is Haas. They remain on 20 points. P7 is that Aston Martin team flagged by the aforementioned Lance Stroll. They remain on 14 points. P8 is Racing Bulls. They are up to 10 points on the season. P9 is Alpine, who remain on 7 points. P10, still on the 6 points. Based on Nico Hulkenberg's wonderful result in Melbourne, is Kick Sauber. Like I said, they remain on the 6 points. All right, so you have heard our takes on the weekend. It is now time for your takes on the weekend. It's the Fanny Mail segment. Just got a couple here tonight. I think Dave Doherty went on vacation or something because I haven't seen or heard from him much this week, but that's okay. Dave, we appreciate you just the same. We'll get to your question in the preview that you asked about Alpine in our next preview episode, because we got to talk about Alpine. We haven't even had a chance to dive into the drama and the craziness of the 2 weeks that happened with the Alpine team. And it ends in Doha, Qatar, with customs arrests and all sorts of stuff. So we're going to get into all that next week. So just trust us. We're going to talk about it. But our first email comes from Rachel Fleming. Cody, it's your time to shine. What does Rachel have to say?
All right. Thank you, Rachel, for your email. And she says, well, that almost felt like 2023 all over again, almost. What a move from Max at the start of the race. It turned out to be a race-winning move and was worthy of the best. I thought we would all be doomed to a one-stop race with it being a procession. Well, we did get some overtakes, which is a better result than last year. Alonso watch, well, Aston Martin can do well in quali. That's a good start. Race trim, not so much. Hopefully, there can be an improvement in Monaco, where quali will be key. Then Sauber watch. Once again, Nico was in 10th, but sadly, it was not to be for him or Gabriel. Finally, it's looking like it will be the last race in Imola for a while. It's a shame, but maybe the track wasn't as suitable for modern-day F1 cars as it once was, and there is always Monza still for the Tifosi. Now, as far as it being the last race in Imola for potentially the foreseeable future, that actually disappoints me a little because, one, we actually got a really good race here, and I'll get onto the tire aspect of that probably with our next email here. But I found out that tickets to the race at Imola are actually among the least expensive Formula One races you can attend, and you're still in the beautiful northern region of Italy. And I was kind of looking at that being like, I wonder if I can make this work. And then I found out that I don't have a chance because they're not racing there anymore. So I'll just have to wait for it to come back in like 5 years' time when they decide that the Madrid street circuit is not worth having. As far as some of the other things you got on here, yes, I am happy that we got real overtakes, and it wasn't just at the only DRS zone, although that was where most of them happened, but it wasn't the only place. And while it did turn out that the one-stop strategy was pretty much the best way to go, at least it wasn't a sure thing from the team's perspectives, because we did end up having some two-stop strategies, even coming into play before we had the safety car at the end, where everyone who could took another stop. So I think overall it was a very successful race here, and I'll give that chef's kiss again to that Max move at the start. The door was left open, but he walked in.
Yeah, exactly. And well put. But as for Imola, I tried to read into what are the issues? Like, why? I mean, the place was filled to capacity, and a lot of it is just kind of the overall infrastructure of the grounds themselves. It's in the middle of a town. It's like trying to fit 250,000 people. 250 people would be just fun enough, but 250,000 people into a center of a town, all converging, where there's apparently 3 roads in and out of there, makes what we deal with in Texas look like nothing. Apparently they start the races at 7 or something, 8 a.m. with the Formula 3 feature race, and it looks empty. You want to know why? Because everybody's on the damn road trying to get in there. 2 and 3 hours, and that's for the staff. So you can only imagine what it's like for the fans to try to get in there. So I don't know that this is I think that that's really what the issue is more about it. It's not that it's not a beautiful track. And it also needs some work. Apparently, this is a place that could actually use some of that resurfacing. Because I think even Lando in the cool down room made a point of saying, yeah, there was this one corner at turn 7 where I went into the gravel and I found more grip, and I was like, oh, okay, well, that's cool. I'll do it the same way the next time. And then the same time, because I'm in gravel, I didn't have the same consistent grip. And I was like, oh, okay. So, these are the types of things that happen with a track that's as old as this one. Does it add character? Does it add personality? Absolutely. Is it a great moto track? It's a great moto track. I've watched Superbikes there. I've seen MotoGP race there. It's an awesome track for that, and it's the appropriate width. But for this version of F1 cars, it's tough. That having been said, it will be sad that this is not going to be on the calendar. I hope that whoever owns that land and can own that facility wants to put some money into it, and possibly can resurrect, because obviously the Tifosi brought it all weekend. So it's not a matter of do I like or do I not like this track. I love the track, but it's just sad that it's probably going to not be on the calendar, at least for the foreseeable future. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say I'm sorry it's not going to be on there either. We have seen many times from the Tifosi, those the Italian folk, they love a good race car, so it makes sense to have two races in Italy, in my opinion, because that's where some of the most diehard fans you can find are at. So
absolutely.
it is too bad that we're going to be just back down to the one race in Italy. But I mean, I don't think Monza's going anywhere anytime soon.
Nope.
That is a classic among classics.
Yep. As to your other points, I mean, we've talked about the move from Max, and what it took. Just the commitment level was, I thought, amazing, because when he first tried it, the thought I had was he's going to end up in the gravel. He's going to end up in the gravel. He's going to spin out, and him and Oscar are going to take each other out. And then he somehow made it stick. And it's, like I said, it's reminiscent of when Lando gave him that little bit of turn one at Coda, and Max just found it. And when you leave a Cobra snake a opportunity, they're going to take advantage of it. And well played on Max for doing it. So
what you mentioned might just be Max's mindset going into this is, well, I'm going to make this happen, or I'm going to go into the gravel and we're both going to crash. I would not be surprised if that's how he thinks about it.
I think that's how the mentality of some of the great ones have to be, because otherwise, how do you do something like that? Because if you're thinking about the consequences, you've already lost. So he just, that's what he said. He's like, oh, well, the door's here. I'm just going to try it and see what happens. And, bloop, great calculation, great car control, and a completely fair move for all the stuff we give Max about his overtaking or the way that he, does corner combat. This was completely fair, clean,
very clean
move. Well done. Rachel, to your other points, Fernando Alonso, again, the luckiest man in the world, apparently. Do not let him into the casino square when they get to Monaco, because if he has money, he's going to lose it. So we'll just keep him out of there, keep him out of the poker room, and hopefully he should be fine. The Saubers got close, but unfortunately not enough for them this weekend. But all right, Cody, next one from Mr. Formula. What do we got?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Formula, for your email. And he says, Max had a little luck today, and he effectively made his own luck. Appreciate what we're watching, folks. He's an all-time great already. Hats off to that. I was planning on writing about how we used to talk about durability issues almost every Grand Prix just a few years ago, and now we don't. But my thoughts apparently conjured up some bona fide durability issues, a rarity in today's iteration of F1. And what did we think about the new C6 tire compound? I wish Pirelli could find a way to make the soft compound more enticing on race day. Just like the full wet tire, it doesn't seem to have much use anymore. I assume meaning beyond qualifying. So yes, we didn't really talk about this super at length, but something that Pirelli has been doing this year is trying to move a lot of the Grand Prix to a softer compound. And I've noticed it a lot when we do the prep for our preview show, comparing this year's race to last year's race, that, you at a lot of the tracks we're moving all of the tire compounds one compound softer. And when you go to a track where you're already using the three softest compounds, what do you do if you still want to go softer? Because the whole thing that we're trying to do out of this is move to more strategy variation, making it so that not every race is just a one stop. You're going from medium to hard to medium, and that's all that's happening. If you're using softer compounds that are breaking down more, it introduces more potential for strategy. So yeah, what do you do if you're already using C3, C4, C5? Well, you gotta come up with a softer tire so you can do 4, 5, 6, and that's what they did. And we've got that C6 tire being used for the first time, in this Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix weekend in qualifying. And as we saw, not everybody's really on top of what this tire can do yet. We would just see Aston Martin have greater success in qualifying using the C5, which is still a very soft tire. Um, I I think it's going to be pretty conditional where we really see this get used on uh, race day. I think really the bigger effect out of this is that you don't have, where you're using your softest compounds, you no longer have a C3 to fall back on. So now the hardest tire compound you can use is a C4, which is still a fairly soft compound. So I think that's kind of really the big thing that comes out of this is your medium hard combination on race day is softer. Like you still have that, and the C6 is, it's there if you want to use it. It's super soft, and it probably makes qualifying interesting so long as it holds up for a whole lap. But I think it's probably going to be pretty limited on race day. We're going to only see it in extreme circumstances, maybe where someone who normally doesn't qualify up by the front ends up, making it to the front, and they want to try to do what they can with it off the start. Maybe you'll see a C6 come into play then if they're already using the softest compounds, or if it ends up happening that there's like a safety car at the end of the race and somebody wants to try to make the most out of like a 2-lap sprint. You might see people switching over to the C6 then. But that you could really see that kind of strategy come into play with any softest tire compound for the race weekend. I don't see, with how soft they must be making this tire, I don't really see it coming into play much beyond qualifying. But as I said before, I don't really fully think that the purpose of this tire is to get used a lot. I think it's to make it so that you still have to use softer compounds that race weekend.
Right. I tend to agree with you. And to me, the issue is the lack of testing. And why do we have a lack of testing? Because the only place we went testing was Bahrain, which is 80 grit sandpaper and just eats up tires. You wouldn't want to put a C6 tire on it because it's not going to last.
It'll be gone a third of the way through the
yeah,
lap.
you get through sector 1 and they're already going to be complaining that there's no more grip in the tire. So when you used to test it like Catalunya, you would see, even though they wouldn't run certain softer compounds at the actual Barcelona GP, you'd see them run, do a glory run on one of those softer compounds, at least to see what it would do. So here you had this new tire, so everybody put it on in the first 2 practices. And then they kind of figured out really quickly, well, this is just, it's a dead tire. I mean, it's got no race pace to it. 4 or 5 laps is all you got. And, then it's kind of deader than doornail. I mean, Charles Leclerc wanted to put on a set of those things at the end during that last safety car. And his team told him, there's 17 laps left. That tire's not going to make it, bud. So your best bet is to stick on the stuff that you got. So, when that comes down as a race tire, the C6 obviously fails. But as a qualifying tire, it at least made the qualifying interesting because it brought some variability into it. Not every team was convinced that, going a step softer was the right way, especially when you got to FP3 and you could see half the grid when they went to the final runs on what is supposed to be the softest tire. Not many people improved. So that also tells you, again, was this a good idea? What it did do is it definitely introduced some variability. And I think you're right. It made the softer compounds in the race have to happen, so that the thought is what they're trying to do is they're trying to get to some sort of a 2-stop strategy. Now we're going to go to Monaco, and Monaco is going to be the first time where it is going to be mandatory. You shall stop twice in the race. So depending on how that works and what that does to the grid, or if it makes for at least pit lane overtakes versus actual race overtakes, because we know we don't have them at Monaco. And when we do, we get a picture of Lance Stroll that pops up, on your TV. But beyond that, it's really going to we're really going to have to see. And the C6 tire is going to be in Monaco too. So yeah, I mean, Monaco is a place where you could put on the softest tire and they do 40 laps on the C5s. So you may actually see it work the way that they want this upcoming weekend. I think this was the trial to at least get the teams some data on it.
And I look forward to seeing how it goes, because Monaco qualifying is pretty much the most exciting qualifying you're going to see during the season, and it's the one that matters the most when it comes to race day too.
Absolutely. It's appointment television. I tell you that every year. I go, stop what you're doing, find the hour, watch Monaco qualifying live. We'll probably talk more about the qualifying session in our race recap than we actually do the race.
I guarantee we did that last year because, God, last year was so freaking boring.
Yeah, exactly. But they're understanding this is the only thing that gives me like hope for if the 2026 engines suck, is they're already trying to take steps to fix things. They're getting there. And I teased this at the Miami one. I didn't get a chance to talk about it because we didn't get a chance to do a preview. But if you are a longstanding follower of this show, my take on why you only see one stops comes down to something very simple to me. And that is because the pit lane deltas are too high. The numbers don't work out, that even if you get better tires and better race pace and all that other stuff, there's no motivation to do it because it's not quicker overall. And the biggest component of that is the pit lane speed limit. So what has been proposed, they're finally listening to this show. Thank you so much to whoever at the FIA's picked up on this, to make in certain places the 60 kph at least up to 80 kph. I understood that when we went down to 60, there was a lot of reasons for doing so. You had a lot more people in the pits. You had a lot more photographers and people who, quite frankly, shouldn't have been in the pit lane to begin with, and they were in danger. So to come out and try to say, you need to raise the pit lane speed limiter to get more two-stop races was not going to go anywhere. So I didn't exactly die on that hill. But it is interesting that now, what is this, season 7? I've been doing this for like 5 years. 5 years into this, somebody's listening to me, dang it. Here we go. We're going to try that. So that's the payoff from last week. But thank you, Mr. Formula, as always. For your comments. We enjoy responding. Thank you, Rachel, too, as well. Rachel, just to let you know, I'm doing much better. She reached out to me over Twitter and wanted to make sure I was okay when I put the tweet out that said, hey, no preview, but had some issues. All right. So we're going to move into our awards, and we shall start with the rubbish. And we've got some on-track ones, and I've got some off-track ones. So, Cody, what you got here?
My rubbish is going to go to Ferrari in the qualifying session, because I don't know what they were doing with that car, but it was nowhere to be found in Q2. Some of the cars that they got out qualified by, frankly, to them should be a little embarrassing. The Aston Martins have been pretty much nowhere this entire season, and yet both of them made it in front of both Ferraris. So, yeah, very disappointing from them in qualifying. I will get to the race bit later, but yeah, I don't know if they were trying some kind of weird setup or they really didn't know what to do with that C6 tire yet, but it was pretty bad.
Yeah. My on track, just because of the way the results panned out, and I felt bad putting Ollie Behrman in here, but Haas, just this whole weekend, it just seems as they couldn't get any luck. From the Behrman incident to no points on the day, to Esteban Ocon's engine, going kaput. It just felt like they had kind of a bad weekend, and I think they're just happy to be done with it. Off the track, Sky, what are you doing? Why, oh why was my good buddy Jacques Villeneuve back on my television again? Now, I thought for 3/4 of this weekend, you did the right thing with him. You put him opposed to all the women. You had Jamie Chadwick in there. You had other pundits in there that were kind of making sure that he wasn't going off on weird tangents and hot take city and all that. And I'm like, oh, this is what he's actually supposed to be doing, giving driver perspective. And then the race ends, and then he has this McLaren point that just sent me to the moon. I probably shouldn't be going to the moon in my condition right now, but I was pretty damn close, because he basically said that McLaren failed because they didn't do the driver swap right at the end of the safety car. And I'm like, in what reality, one, has that strategy ever worked? And two, why are you just stirring the pot to stir the pot? Like, just shut up, man. Just stop talking. We're all get dumber. And then that gets on to other social media. And, it ended up in Ted's notebook, and Ted's, Kravitz is quoting Jacques Villeneuve. And I'm like, oh, just stop it. Just stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Get him away. Let him go and be the guy that talks to a magazine in the offseason. That's what he's good at. He gives no actual insider analysis. I don't believe any of the rumor mills that he propagates. And it's just, he's waiting for an opportunity to do a hot take. And he contained it for 3 days, and then he decided to go berserker. Yeah.
Continuing to prove that Jacques Villeneuve, among Andy's least favorite Formula One world champions.
I swear to God, if he's working at Coda, he's going to get yelled at from the stands.
Well, the wonderful thing is, from our seats,
he'll be able to hear
me.
you, and he will be able to hear me. I guarantee you. I'm going to find
out. You suck.
Yes, exactly. Like, it's going to be constant. They're going to go, who is that guy in the background? Yeah, me, motherfucker.
I would be there. I would literally be there for it. So,
oh no,
I'm looking forward.
Like if I find out he's there Saturday night, we're going to Walgreens. We're getting some signs. We're getting markers, and we're staying up all night doing arts and crafts and Jacques Villeneuve hate signs. It's going to be awesome.
Fantastic. We might have to find TV at that point.
All right. So beyond that, but let's see that. Then I get kicked out and never invited back. But we'll move on. It will not be anything obscene, I promise. It'll be fair game. Analysis paralysis, but let's move on to that. Cody, what you got here?
I'm going to go with McLaren on this one. Now, the Lando one, that's not their fault. They were doing a good strategy with Lando, making him go for the one stop. They just had bad luck with him that he pitted right before the virtual safety car. Now, not sure how much of the Oscar bit was on Oscar and how much of it was on McLaren making the decision to pit him early. It ended up really not helping him out because first, then he had to fight through traffic, and he did a great job fighting through traffic. In fact, I got a pretty good laugh when they played the radio bit of the Red Bull team telling Yuki Tsunoda to hold up Oscar as much as he could, and Oscar just flies by him right after that. I was like, oh yeah, you did so much to hold him up there.
Lewis Hamilton's got more Oscar trauma too, because that was a pretty sweet move that he pulled on him.
Yes, he was doing a good job fighting through the traffic. Problem was, though, is he would make a little bit of a gain on Max in terms of time, and then he'd get into dirty air, and fighting with another car that he's got to get past, and he'd lose everything that he gained. So that wasn't helping him. On top of that, it ended up being that the one stop actually probably was the better way to go. You just had to get through that tire graining phase, and all the team's drivers know about the graining thing, and that it can trip you up a little bit, and that sometimes you just got to fight through that on the tire and it'll get better. But I think they jumped the gun a little bit, and I think they threw away. Well, I didn't really throw anything away. Oscar still made it onto the podium, but I think he would have had at least an easy P2 had they hung him out on the one stop.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in a similar vein, but mine is more on Piastri because I heard the whole radio thing, and that's more on Oscar than the team. Oscar said, I don't think we can get to plan A. And when Oscar says stuff on the radio, he's usually very definitive. I mean, it's not like when Lando does it, and you got to kind of have a whole conversation in a committee meeting and then kind of figure out what we want to do and what's everybody else doing. No. Oscar just said, I don't think we can make this. And McLaren have backing their guy saying, look, this is our championship leader. He's right now the de facto number one of the team. He says we can't make it. Come up with a strategy to get him to the end of the race. How are we going to do it? They sent the calculators to work, and they came back and they said, box him at this lap. That's what happened. But Oscar not having faith in the tires made his race much, much harder because of that. And I thought for that's still one of those things that we got to figure out. Is he really coming into his own on reading the tires, and here it was a bit of a miss, if I'm being quite honest with you. So my analysis paralysis goes, I love the guy, but Oscar Piastri's got to wear it this time. All right, so we'll move on to our dark horse of the day. I'll go first with this one. I'm going to give this one to Alex Albon and Williams as a whole, who I thought they look so good compared to where they were in the last couple of years. They are going to be so much fun starting next year for sure. They're going to be fun this year. But even next year, you just have a funny feeling that James Vowles is going to put the resources in the right places. They're going to come out looking like geniuses at the end of this thing. But in the meantime, Alex Albon's got his fangs out, and it's fun to watch. This was the guy that, was in the other Red Bull seat and kind of got screwed out of it. So, Helmut Marko, fuck you. Alex Albon can race.
Yeah, I got to wonder how many of those Red Bull number 2 drivers that have come and gone through that seat. We've seen so many of them have turned out to be really great drivers. They just floundered in that seat. I mean, Gasly's doing much better. Albon is doing much better. Ricardo, I think, is the only one who really ended up coming off worse out of leaving there. But, it makes you wonder if anyone really should be going into that second seat right now, because it might ruin their career. I think Albon has actually been doing so well so frequently lately that it's actually going to be hard to call him a dark horse here in the near future.
That's true. He's gonna outwear that title.
Mm-hmm. My dark horse is going to go to Ferrari for the race. I thought with how bad their qualifying went that they were going to be kind of stuck in the back there, and was actually kind of hoping that maybe we'd see some kind of miracle that lets Fernando Alonso get some points for finally. But no, they actually fought back brilliantly, and it was almost looking like Lewis Hamilton was potentially on for the podium at that point had he had a few more laps. So yeah, a great comeback from them from a really rocky Saturday to having a pretty great Sunday.
Yeah, I would agree. Like I said, the Ferrari race pace is definitely real. All right, so we'll move into our driver of the day. I think we've got consensus here. This one's an easy one. Max Verstappen for the mega move in turn 1 and just the controlling of the pace after that. This one looked reminiscent of 2023, Max Verstappen. So well done, sir. I tip my cap, and we'll move on to the next one as a McLaren fan, but Max Verstappen, driver of the day, easy.
Yep, same for me. It's the first race that he's won really since Brazil, I would say. He's only had a couple of wins in between there at this point, but he looked in control of this one pretty much for the whole race. Even if he didn't get the well-timed virtual safety car, I still think he probably was going to win the race. He was, in control of the gap to the cars behind him. It didn't really look like the McLarens were going to catch him up and put a lot of pressure on him like they did in Miami. So I don't know if it's just that this track was better suited to the Red Bull. Maybe they're figuring some stuff out. Who knows? But he at least looked in control of this one, like the Max of 2023 or the Max of Brazil last year, where he got out in front and just took off down the road, setting fastest laps for 20 laps.
So we're not going to talk about predictions because we didn't do any, because I was kind of a bit indisposed there. So I apologize for that. But in lieu of that, I'm going to get out one of my favorite sound effects of the year because we get to talk about a little IndyCar. Here we go.
I wonder why they boxed that one. It's such a good sound effect.
Oh, well, because they moved networks. That was the old ABC one, and that always used to tell me it was IndyCar time, man. Indy 500 qualifying took place over the course of this weekend. We not only saw Yuki Tsunoda get flipped over, but a couple other guys were flipping over as well. So yeah, some dramatic crashes, some last minute stuff in the last chance qualifier. Rinus VeeKay almost bumped himself out of the 500, but then got himself back in the 500. So congratulations to him. Unfortunately, we have to say goodbye to Jacob Abel, who is the one qualifier, the one participant who will not compete in the race. But the battle out front, I teased this before we went to break, but something happened today that has not happened in 42 years. Robert Schwartzman. Yeah, that guy, the F2 phenom, the Ferrari reserve driver, is sitting on pole position for Prema. Prema, who has had an absolutely terrible start to its IndyCar career, and Robert Schwartzman, who's had weekends where he's literally turned 3 laps before his engine would die again and again and again. Has put it together on a super speedway package. They've taken that car, and whatever they did, that dude wheeled the crap out of that car and took down the almost nearly invincible Alex Palou, who has won everything in IndyCar. You think Max Verstappen 2023 was dominant? No. Alex Palou just says, "Hold my beer." Because that dude is on some sort of next stratosphere. He's going to have the championship won by the end of June in IndyCar at the rate that he's going. And it's not even going to be close. So just an amazing qualifying. Indy 500 is going to be next weekend after the Monaco GP. If you have Sky, I think they literally go from the F1 straight to the race. So you can watch it if you're in Europe. It is appointment television, new network this year. It's on Fox, no longer NBC. Will Buxton, if you remember from F1 TV, is now come over and full-time in the US and does the play-by-play commentary. Very excitable guy, very passionate guy, and a lot of fun. And I thoroughly enjoyed the qualifying coverage this weekend. So it's always good to talk a little bit of IndyCar. We'll probably work the Indy 500 into our Monaco review like we always tend to do. We'll at least give you the results of who finished where. But good luck to all of the 33 combatants at the Indy 500. Having the opportunity just to go to that place, even just to watch the road course. And I didn't get a chance to talk about this either, but when we were there, and Alex Palou just dominated the road course, and you could tell how bad it was because this had not happened in IndyCar in a long time. There was a late safety car. So Alex Palou had this like 20-second lead, and then it comes down to almost nothing. And the Pato Award is in P2. The Pato Award's a send it guy. He'll try, a move, even if it's not necessarily going to work out. But they restart the race. Pato doesn't go for a dive bomb move, and Alex has got a gap. And the next time they come around, I look over to a guy on my right, and this is a guy who I think has been to like every Indy 500 because he's got all sorts of flags and everything. And he just goes like this to me. He goes like, the gap was here, and now the next time around, it's here. And to see the visual of a 1 second difference in lap time, that just profoundly is something I'd never been able to do before. So it was an entertaining Indy GP that I had a chance to go to. I did share a couple pictures. I've got a couple videos. They're not really great ones of like the race start and the race finish because my camera work was pretty bad. But yeah, I mean, but the fact that here, Robert Schwartzman, the guy who was a 40-1 betting underdog, came in and put it on pole, tells you at this race, anything can and will happen. And that's the great thing about it. So any one of those 33 guys, there's no women this year, have a chance to sip the milk at the Indy 500. So we will definitely be watching that post Monaco next weekend. So Cody, any final thoughts before we wrap on up?
That I was happy with how this race played out. It was more exciting than I was expecting it to be. I hope that Monaco has the same to offer. I hope we get a more exciting Monaco than we got last year, and that is a very low bar. So, pretty much if we get like an overtake, I think we'll be beaten out last year. But I will also definitely watch the Indy 500. Now, I do follow IndyCar. I don't really watch the races beyond the highlights. But the Indy 500 is one that I do always watch from start to finish just because it's a classic. It's really exciting. Even if you're not super into oval racing, it's amazing how fast those cars are going around the track. Like, sometimes when you're on the onboard views, you don't really get a sense of how fast you're going. At the Indy race, you do get that sense. You're on the onboard and you're watching how fast everything is whizzing by the cars, by the wall and outside of it. And you're like, holy crap, these guys are insane. They're doing like 230 plus. It's a great one. And those guys have nuts of steel for sure.
Your eyeballs can't keep up with it. I mean, it's literally a blur. It's literally a blur when you're trying to watch it. So, yeah, good luck to, like I said, to all of those folks. So we're going to gear up for our Monaco GP weekend and our Indy 500 weekend. All things, assuming everything goes well, we will try to get a preview episode out or later on this week. And then we will watch, obviously, the Monaco GP with great anticipation, and the Indy 500. We'll be back with a review show and hopefully get back to kind of a normal cadence. Thank you to everybody who sent messages of support. They are much, much appreciated. So, again, for Cody, it's been Andy. It's nice to be able to do this. This is like the most normal thing I've done all week. So thank you, everybody, for sticking with us. And as always, folks, may all your laps be fast.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Outlap F1 podcast. If you like what you heard, click that subscribe button and be sure to leave us a 5-star review. If you want to connect with us outside of the show, check out our website at www.outlapf1.com. Find us on Twitter and Instagram at outlapf1 podcast, or email us at chatnow@outlapf1.com. As always, thank you so much for your support, and we'll see you on the next one.